We've tested a lot of vacuums, and in this video, we're gonna select the 5 best ones, and we're gonna pit them against each other in a 5-way battle for suction supremacy.
But it's not just suction. We actually tested about 20 different metrics to see which one really is the best. So here are the contenders.
The Dreame X40 Ultra, the do-it-all robot, and at the time of shooting this video, about $1,000.
The Eufy S1 Pro, Eufy's best robot vac with a very unique approach to mopping, about $1,200.
The Narwhal Frio Z Ultra, the first robot with dual RGB cameras, dual AI chips, and right now, about $1,300.
The Roborock S8 Max V Ultra, which is their reliable flagship that has an extending brush, also around $1,300.
And the Roborock Q Revo Curve, their newest design that lifts itself over thresholds, about $1,600. Unfortunately, we were not able to get an Ecovacs robot in time for this test. All the manufacturers did send us their robots, however, this video is not sponsored, and they definitely don't know we're doing this video.
And you'll notice we tested each robot vacuum exactly the same. We decided to include 2 Roborocks because the Curve includes their best technology, and it performed really well in our latest tests.
This is a new format for us, so grab a snack and settle in for the finest robot action on the web.
We think that high-end robots should be able to do the basics pretty well. So our first 2 tests are going to be pickup performance. Our first one on hardwood, we laid down 20 grams of sand and put each vacuum on their high vacuuming mode to see which could pick up the most. We gave each vacuum 2 passes, and then in between we cleaned up the remaining residue with our Dyson V15 to ensure that each one had a fair take.
As you might expect, all the robots did extremely well. The Narwhal picked up 95% of the sand, while the others picked up 100%. We're assigning each robot a score from 1 to 5. Now for hardwood pickup, we're gonna double the score in the final tally because we think raw pickup performance is important. The Narwhal has 12,000 pascals of suction, which is the median for this group that ranges from 8,000 for the Eufy and 18,500 for the Q Revo Curve. Now, pickup performance isn't just about suction, it's also the path that the robot takes and how effective their various brushes are at sweeping the dirt into the main container. For the carpet test, we're doing the same thing. We are vacuuming the carpet in between each pass of each robot to make sure it's completely clean.
Now the carpet test is actually pretty challenging, so we let each robot run through it twice. Once where we ground the sand into the carpet, and then the second time where we simply sprinkled it onto the carpet.
You can see when we ground the sand into the carpet, there was a fairly big difference in performance, with the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra being the best performer. However, when we just sprinkled the sand on top of the carpet, the results were a lot closer. For the carpet tests, we're adding together the scores for the ground in and the sprinkled to reflect a double weight in the final tally. And by the way, if you like the format of this video, please be sure to comment below what we can do better next time.
Now, if you have a lot of carpet or you track a lot of dirt into your house, the Roborocks are solid contenders in this area.
Now, you might have some super groovy organic people in your home that just tend to leave hair all over the carpet.
So for the next test, we're going to be placing 30 long red hairs on the carpet and using each vacuum on their maximum suction setting to see which one performs the best. We're going to let them do 2 passes because frankly, I don't like vacuuming. It's not the way Mother Nature intended things to work out.
But Mother Nature isn't fair. So what we're going to do is we're going to vacuum up after each robot to see exactly how effective it was. And we're also going to check how effective the different anti-tangle strategy is for each separate robot. Let's look at the canister for the Dreame X40 Ultra. Okay, there's a lot of red hair in here, which is really good. That's where you want to see it. Here's the filter, there's a little bit of hair here. This has the optional tri-cut roller brush, which you can order separately. You can see it has the little special cutting blades, and I don't see any hair in here at all. A little bit here in the ends, that's pretty normal. Looking in here, this looks really good. A tiny little bit of hair left behind on the carpet, so very good. Looks pretty good, actually. There's a little bit of hair tangled up at the ends, which is pretty easy to get out. A little bit over here. These rubber rollers tend to be fairly anti-tangle. Inside the dust pickup canister, there is definitely some red hair in here. So I think overall, also a very good job. After vacuuming the carpet, we picked up a tiny little bit of red hair after the Eufy had done its pass. Narwhal has this anti-tangle style brush roll where it's actually sort of conical and it's only held on to one side. It seems to be pretty effective with long hair. I don't see any red hair. Here's one, and there is a lot of red hair in this canister. That's a very good result. And vacuuming after the Narwhal, there's just a couple strands of red hair. The Q-Revo Curve has this duo divide style brush roll system where you've got two different parts of the brush roll. It's supposed to get rid of hair. I don't see any red hair on here at all. And there's a lot of red hair in this canister, so that's pretty good. And after vacuuming, I think there is the least amount of red hair on the carpet so far of any of them. The Roborock S8 Max V Ultra, it's got these dual brush rolls. We've got a little bit of hair tangled up in the ends, not much. And there is a lot of red hair in here, so that's a good thing. The S8 took the most effort to get the hair off of the ends compared to the other ones. Very little red hair left over from the S8 Max V Ultra, so that's good. Now let's take a look at the chart. Now, if you've got a round house, you just want to skip this next test. However, if your home has corners, you'll want to know which vacuum does the best job at getting the dirt out from those corners.
Now we're gonna put 8 pieces of rice and some pet hair around the corner so that we can see how these vacuums do. Some of them have an extended brush like the Dreame X40, so let's try that one first.
The Dreame has an arm that extends out into the corner and it picked up all of the pet hair and it looks like it left one piece of rice behind. The Eufy has a square design and it has a brush on each side, and theoretically it should be able to get into the corners.
However, it left 6 of the 8 pieces of rice behind. It's not that great at getting into really deep corners because frankly, it's really good at not bumping into walls and protecting your baseboards, just not good at getting deep into those corners.
Now, unlike the Eufy, the Narwhal is round. And it doesn't have brushes that extend out to the side, so while it did a pretty good job with the fluffy cat hair, it didn't get all of the rice. It left 5 pieces behind. Can you believe that?
I can't.
The Roborock Q-Revo Curve has an arm that extends, and it really pays dividends when getting into corners. Only left 2 pieces of rice, and it picked up all of the pet hair. The Roborock S8 Max V Ultra also has an extending arm. It picked up all of the pet hair and it left only 1 grain of rice. For corner pickup, the Dreame and the S8 tied for first place. They both only left a single grain of rice behind. That's because they both have an extending arm. Now we're going to test mopping performance with a little bit of soy sauce on the floor. We're going to put the exact same amount for each robot. I'm going to clean up the floor in between passes. I'm going to clean it up first, and then we're going to check the pads, see how much is on there. And then in the base station section, we're going to see exactly how well each robot washes the mop pads. For this test, I'm going to use similar mopping modes on each app. So for the Dreame, I've got it set to mop, I've got maximum water, and I've got intensive route. We're going to run the mopping test 2 different ways. First, we're going to send each vacuum out single pass, maximum water, and most meticulous cleaning. The second time, we're going to send it out in AI mode. Each of these robots has some type of artificial intelligence mode. Let's get started. The Dreame X40 Ultra has a dual spinning mop pad design that's actually now becoming pretty much the standard across robot vacuums. This is what the pads look like immediately after mopping. Now let's check out and see how clean or how dirty the floor is. This is how much soy sauce is left. I don't know if that's a lot or a little bit. We'll see how it is compared to other robots, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna repeat this test and I'm gonna set the Dreame to maximum water and also set the pattern to deep cleaning. Let it do 1 pass and try it again, see if it does any better. And after the second pass, the Dreame had the same result.
Now the Dreame X40 AI doesn't work when you're cleaning a zone, so let's move on to the Eufy S1 Pro. Now the Eufy is the only robot we're talking about that has a mop roller. It's also the only one that has a clean and dirty water tank.
It cleaned up that floor area a lot faster than the Dreame did. It took maybe just 3 minutes. It did it in one pass, and you can see that on the paper towel, it's almost completely clean. There's really nothing there left of the soy sauce. So the roller design seems to have big advantages in terms of mopping. The Eufy has no AI mode when zone cleaning is enabled, so we didn't do a second pass. Let's move on to the Narwhal Frio Z Ultra. First, we let it clean in normal mode, and the results were mid-pack. Then we let it clean in AI mode. Okay, it just did one single pass, which is a little surprising because I've tested it before, and in the past it has done a couple of passes on a dirty area, but let's see. So yeah, there is a fair bit of soy sauce still left on the floor, so not perfect.
Now the Q-Revo Curve also has dual spinning mop pads, which are becoming standard at Roborock. We ran it on both normal and AI mode, and sort of like with the others, AI mode didn't really do bubkiss. It kind of did a single pass and went back to the mothership, leaving a lot of the soy sauce still on the floor.
Like the other robots, we sent the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra out for 2 mopping passes, one in normal mode, another one in AI mode. And when it went out in AI mode, again, like the others, it didn't detect the soy sauce that was left on the floor, came back to the base station, and I think it left a little bit more soy sauce on the floor than the other robots. So for mopping performance, most of the robots were fairly equal. However, the Eufy S1 Pro was by far the best performer. I want to talk about AI mode for a second, which all of these robots have some variation of under different names. What I was expecting to happen with the soy sauce is that each of these robots would detect some soy sauce was still left on the floor after their pass, go back to the base station, and then go out and do another pass. However, that's not what happened.
Now the next test is edge mopping. So we looked at how close each mop could get to the baseboard, and the Dreame actually excelled in this area, getting right up against the edge.
So it's good at edging.
It's great at edging.
Next, we tested the Eufy S1 Pro, and although it has the best mopping performance by far, it's very cautious when it comes to furniture and baseboards, and it leaves about a ½ inch of unmopped floor.
As far as the Narwhal Frio Z, it wiggles side to side, leaving a bit of room between itself and the baseboard, so this one actually left about an inch of dry wood floor still.
Now the Q-Revo Curve has an extending mop, and it did excellent. It got right up to the baseboard, and it tied with the Dreame for a perfect score.
And finally, the Roborock S8 has this tiny spinning mop on the edge that allows it to get right up against the baseboard, so it actually tied with the Curve and the Dreame.
In edge mopping, things were a little bit different, where the Eufy S1 Pro was not a good performer, but the Dreame, the Roborock, and the S8 were all really good because they have an arm that swings out with a mop. Next up is corner mopping, which is a lot like edge mopping, but it's about 90 degrees more difficult. And it's actually where a lot of pet hair can accumulate too. Now the Dreame X40 does have a side mop that extends, but for whatever reason it didn't extend quite enough and didn't get deep enough into the corner, so it left a little bit of dirt behind.
Now the Eufy has a mop roller, and even though it has a square body, it's extra careful to not bump into areas around the baseboard, so it wasn't very effective at getting into the corners.
Now the Narwhal doesn't get very close into the corner, and the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra doesn't get very close either.
The Roborock Q-Revo does get a little bit closer than the others, but none of the robots really performed that well in this test overall. Obviously, there are some physical limitations based on the way they are shaped. Now in the edge pickup test, we're taking each robot and putting them in vacuum mode only with maximal suction engaged with a single pass. Now it's a test to see how effective each robot is at picking up things along the edge of baseboards, so we put down 20 grains of rice and a gram of sand and let the robots loose. Now the Eufy has side brushes that spin pretty quickly, as well as the ability to shoot air onto the ground. The combination actually blew the rice away from the vacuum so that I was able to pick it up, and it got most of the grains but left a few behind. Now the Q-Revo did an excellent job along the baseboards and only left 2 grains of rice behind.
And the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra also did an excellent job, leaving almost nothing behind. Now the Narwhal wasn't as effective as the others because it kind of took a slightly curvy, tipsy line.
Don't drink and vacuum.
So the Dreame has an arm that extends out to the side, and on the first pass, it left a little bit of rice behind, did a pretty good job, but then on the second pass, it picked up pretty much everything, giving it a perfect score. Every robot has the potential to bump into furniture legs and scuff it up. So in this test, we're gonna see exactly how well each robot does with furniture.
Now the Dreame X40 got very close to the table legs, but the body actually never ended up scuffing the table itself. So it actually got a perfect score.
Now the Eufy S1 Pro is also really excellent in this test. It gets up pretty close to the table legs and it gets a lot of the dirt. However, it's not perfect, and here's why. It errs on the side of caution in terms of not bumping into your furniture. So there's a balance with these robots between the ones that can get up really close and do a great job cleaning and maybe scuff it up, and the ones that are a little bit more cautious like the Eufy.
Now the Narwhal is also extremely good, getting very close to the legs and actually only bumped into a leg once, destroying my grandmother's vase.
No, it didn't.
I don't have a grandmother.
Now, kind of the opposite of the Eufy, the Q-Revo Curve is actually more aggressive in terms of getting dirt from around table legs. So it did bump into the table leg a couple times. However, in the app, you can actually set it to be more or less aggressive. So I had it set in balanced mode, but I think in the future, I might test it so it's a little more conservative.
Now the Roborock S8 was also focused more on close cleaning. Unfortunately, this allowed it to bump into the legs a couple times, but like the Curve, it also has an app that allows you to adjust the setting. This was in balanced mode, like with the Curve. We probably would take a more conservative view next time.
Now let's see how the performance stacked up. One of the most important features on any high-end robot vacuum is obstacle avoidance. So for this test, we've put a power cord by the wall in a realistic position. Power cords are very difficult for most robots. We've got a shoe with the shoelaces untied. We've got a sock, and we got some fake pet poop. All these robots have a camera, they all have LiDAR, some of them have structured light, and they all have obstacle recognition. So let's see which ones are the best at avoiding these various obstacles.
So we actually did this test twice, once with a thicker black power cord and a second time with a thinner phone cable, which technically should be harder for the vacuum to navigate. Now, it's natural that your vacuum is probably gonna run over a power cord from time to time, so it's pretty hard to get a perfect score, but we do have a surprise in this category.
The Dreame X40 Ultra did extremely well in this test. On the first pass, it touched the power cord, but actually didn't get stuck on it. You can see in the app where it clearly identified these different objects. However, on the second pass, it did try to eat the phone charging cable.
Now the Eufy S1 Pro actually did a really good job, but it could not resist chewing up one of my favorite shoelaces and dragging the shoe around. Now on the second pass, it did a very good job at avoiding the phone cable, but it's pretty common actually for these robots to get hung up on shoelaces. So if you're gonna do it, make sure you move the shoes out of the way. It'll save you a lot of time.
I reset the shoe and I put the laces inside the shoe so we don't run into that issue again. So the surprise in this category is the Narwhal Frio Z. It actually had a perfect score. It successfully avoided everything on the floor. And Narwhal has really stepped up their game in the last year. Their robots used to be not very good at obstacle avoidance, and now they have become class leading.
Now the Q-Revo Curve is the newest model, but it actually struggled a lot in this obstacle test. It hit the shoe, it ran over the cable, and it really ran into the fake pet poop, which thank God that was not real. Now, it could be a mapping issue. It's newer to the home, so the AI may not be completely caught up. In the second run, it easily avoided the cable and the fake poop, but just put that caveat out there.
Now the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra actually had a perfect score, and that's interesting because it's another model from Roborock, and it's an older model, so you think it wouldn't have done as well. However, I've got a vacuum theory. Roborock is constantly updating the firmware and downloading it to these robots. So in the time that I've owned it, for about a year, it has had many different firmware updates, and it's really nice to see that a manufacturer does update their firmware on a regular basis. How'd you like that theory?
I liked it.
Now, all these robots are actually pretty good at obstacle avoidance, but the Narwhal Frio Z Ultra was definitely the standout, along with the Roborock S8. We got 5 different robots and 3 different approaches to cleaning.
Now the most unique design is the Eufy S1, which has a physical mop roller, very similar to a paint roller that you paint with. It also has an onboard clean water tank and an onboard dirty water tank, which is something that no other robot in this test has. Now, Eufy says that it actively cleans the mop roller as it's moving over your floor, so it's less likely to spread around a mess. And we found this to be true. In prior testing, we let it clean up a huge mess, and it was very effective. Now, the Narwhal is the only robot without an onboard water tank, which means that it needs to return to the base station to wet the mop pads and wash them more frequently than the other robots.
The Roborock S8 Max V versus the brand new Roborock Q-Revo Curve are actually pretty different, even though they're only about a year apart. On the S8, we've got this dual brush roll design. It's pretty anti-tangle, but what you see here is this mopping pad, and they've moved away from it now. They also have this side brush. Both of them do have this extending arm, but what you see in the newer Curve is that they've moved to dual rotating mop pads, which seems to be sort of an industry standard. Also, they've got this brand new duo divide style brush roll, and they're actually both pretty effective at reducing tangles, but I think the new one is actually a little bit better. And you can see that the predominant style in the robot industry now is this rotating mop pad. In addition to the Curve, the Narwhal has it, and so does the Dreame X40. And the Narwhal uses a slightly different design for anti-tangle. They've got this conical shaped brush roll, which comes out and it's only attached at one end. So all the hair goes down into here. It's actually pretty effective. And the Dreame has this optional tri-cut brush roll, which is designed to cut hairs in here with tiny little blades, and it's actually pretty effective also. Both the Curve and the X40 have arms which extend out, which makes them a little bit better in corners. The Narwhal, on the other hand, has two fixed brushes. And the most unique design is the Eufy S1 with this huge mop roller.
Now, after a robot has mopped your floor, it'll return to the dock to clean the mop. So after we had each of these vacuums clean up the soy sauce, we return them to their docks to see how well they clean under one full cycle of cleaning and compare the results.
These are what the mop pads look like after they had been cleaned at the dock of the Dreame X40 Ultra. They certainly look pretty clean. Let's see if there's any soy sauce left on them. That looks pretty good to me, so I think that is successful. The Eufy just finished cleaning its mop roller. It feels kind of wet. Let's do the paper towel test. And you can see the paper towel looks very clean. So this is a very good mopping robot. The Roborock Q-Revo Curve has just finished washing the mop pads. They look pretty clean. Yeah, looks good to me. Narwhal Frio Z. So these are the mop pads after cleaning the soy sauce. They look pretty clean to me. There's a little bit of dirt in here, but I've been using these actually for several months. Let's see how it looks with this. I think it did a very good job of cleaning out the soy sauce. You can see the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra is washing its side mop pad independently. However, if you really need to clean it, you need to take it off with a Phillips screwdriver. Looking at the mop pad of the S8 Max V Ultra, it's pretty wet. It just did the cleaning cycle. Let's do the paper towel test. Looks pretty good too. Now let's take a look at the chart for this section.
Now, each robot has a different way of keeping your carpet dry while mopping. Most of them allow you to vacuum the carpet before mopping so that you don't get the wet pads on the dry carpet. Now, the Dreame X40 can actually leave the mop pads behind in the dock so that it never gets your carpet wet. That's good.
The Eufy S1 Pro can lift its mop about a ½ inch into the body of the robot when it detects carpet. That's actually a lot higher than some other robots, and it has no problem clearing medium pile carpet.
Similarly to the Eufy, the Narwhal Frio Z also lifts its mop pads about ½ inch into the unit to keep it from getting the carpet wet, or you can actually set it so that it vacuums first so it completely avoids getting any carpet wet.
Now, the Q-Revo Curve is actually unique in that it's able to lift up its entire chassis by about 10 millimeters. That's almost ½ inch. And it can actually go over and clear thresholds that are 3/4 of an inch high in our experience. And you can also set it to vacuum first and then mop.
Now, the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra can lift its vibrating mop pads off the ground about 20 millimeters or 3/4 of an inch. So you can do that, or you can set it to vacuum first and mop after so it keeps it dry.
Now let's see how they compared.
Now let's talk about apps. You can control each of these robots with an app found on Android or iOS. And all of them worked really well, and each of them have very similar levels of customization. Now, we had no issues using these apps, and they're very easy to set up on your Wi-Fi. You can also use the apps to deliver firmware updates to each of the robot vacs when they're at their base station. So we're gonna show you each of these side by side so you get an idea of what each of them look like.
The Dreame app has very easy access to zone cleaning and also setting up no-go zones. Now the Eufy S1 app is a little bit more basic, but it also allows you to easily set no-go zones as well as do zone cleaning. And they both let you set a variety of mop power and water settings, and they allow you to sequence your cleaning as well. Now the Narwhal app is also well developed. You can set up no-go zones, and you can easily customize your cleaning. Now the one thing that limits the Narwhal is the fact that it doesn't have an onboard water tank, and so while the others allow you to have multiple floors that you can clean and mop, the Narwhal will not allow you to mop multiple floors. Now all the robots allow you to map multiple floors, and the Roborock app is the same for the Q Revo and the S8, with only slight differences for each model. Once again, you can set up no-go zones and customize your cleaning really easily, and all these apps have some kind of AI cleaning mode that will allow the robot to analyze how dirty your floor is and adjust the cleaning strategy dynamically. And I found this mode to be pretty good for day-to-day cleaning on all these robots when there's no excessive mess. Now let's take a look at the chart.
Now, one thing that's really cool is all of these robots have hot air mop drying. That means each base station will automatically wash and dry their mops after each mopping session. None of the robots generated any objectionable smells, even after testing each one for several weeks or months.
Now the hot air drying is actually generally pretty quiet with most of these robots. Typically these take anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to dry them out fully.
Okay, so now let's talk about how much maintenance you need to prepare for each of these base stations. Now all of them are pretty similar and actually not a lot of work. So each of them utilize a clean water tank and a dirty water tank.
Now all these robots are going to notify you when the dirty water tank gets full, either on the app or by some sort of robot voice. But I think you should clean out the tank a little bit more frequently because sometimes you can get a little bit of bacterial buildup and you don't want those tanks to smell bad. So I like to empty them every few days. They all have a bag that you need to replace or empty every 60 days or so. And most of them have an optional floor cleaner, but in my experience, you can operate any of these robots without having to use that proprietary floor cleaner. And all these robots have auto dust emptying, auto mop washing, and hot air drying, which takes place typically at the end of their mopping and vacuuming cycle.
Start auto empty.
They all have some type of base plate like this, and you can see it's gotten fairly dirty and it's picked up a lot of cat hair. Farther in the back, you can see these are going to collect dirt, so you'll need to clean these out every couple months. Some, like this Narwhal, are a little more difficult to clean, while others, like the Eufy, are a little easier to clean.
Debris tray removed.
The Dreame also has a removable base plate, which has little wipers which move around and clean the base. And it's pretty easy to access the rest of it. However, the Roborock Q Revo Curve makes things a little bit easier. It has a two-piece tray that comes out. And the bottom part of the tray has these little squeegees, which are really good at picking up little bits of carpet and pet hair. And those get collected by this filter. And this filter comes out and it's pretty easy to wash. The S8 also has a little roller which goes along the bottom and it cleans the mop pad and also the base of the base station. It also has a little filter here which catches hair. It pops out pretty easily so you can clean it. Now let's see how the performance stacked up. All these robots have a camera, which is actually really essential for good obstacle recognition and avoidance. All but the Eufy allow some access to the camera. So the Eufy app allows no access to the camera, and there are absolutely no camera options anywhere in the app at all. Now some, like Roborock, have an opt-in feature that allows the robot to take photos of objects and pets to improve obstacle recognition. However, this feature is turned off by default in every single robot. You need to agree to it. And on the Roborock app, for example, their privacy policy is explained right in the app. The Roborock robots allow you to make video calls with your pets. In order to enable this, you need to explicitly push buttons on the robot to enable this feature. Both the Narwhal and the Dreame require to use a code on the app to turn remote viewing on. Now let's take a look at the charts for this section. We tested each robot for noise 3 different ways. First, we tested each robot in normal suction mode as it was vacuuming. You can see on screen the decibel level for each vacuum. None of them were objectionably noisy. However, the Eufy and the Dreame were both the loudest at around 65 decibels, and the quietest ones were the Narwhal at 55 decibels and the Q-Revo Curve at 58. Next, we tested each unit while it was emptying dust at the base station. Here there is quite a bit less variation in the overall noise, and they're all pretty loud, measured at about 3 feet away. However, the noise only lasts for a couple of seconds. Finally, we checked to see how loud each one was during mop washing. We'll play a brief clip of each one. The Eufy was definitely the loudest. Now, if you decide to keep your robot in your bedroom for some reason, I'd recommend running the cleaning cycle for those during the day, as the base station cleaning cycles can be kind of loud and they might wake you up. And for the noise score for this section, we took an average of the 3 noise measurements for each robot and assigned it a score between 1 and 5, where 5 was the quietest. And both Roborocks overall were the quietest robots in this test.
So Eric, what is the best overall robot?
So it's actually difficult to pick a winner, but the reason is they're all really good. These are all the best robots that we tested over the last year, so they're all excellent performers. However, what we decided to do is give some extra weight to certain categories, which I think are more important. So that's going to be pickup performance on hardwood, hard surfaces, and pickup performance on carpet, and also mopping performance. So for those 3 categories, we've given them double weight. But now, let's get to the winners.
So rounding up our last spot, even though it was a tight race, is the Eufy S1 Pro with 78 points. It did massively outperform the other vacuums in one category. When it came to mopping performance, I actually think this one did absolutely the best. This is one I would definitely trust with a sloppy mess. It did the best with picking up the soy sauce off hardwood floor. So for mopping, the Eufy wins all the way.
Absolutely, and it didn't perform quite as well as the others in carpet pickup. So that's why it got rated a little bit lower, but for mopping performance, this is probably the best robot that you can buy right now.
Next, we have the Narwhal Frio Z Ultra with 80 points. Now, even though it's an excellent robot overall, its pickup performance wasn't quite as good as some of the other robots, and its mopping was actually quite on par with most of the robots except for the Eufy. However, I'll say the obstacle avoidance capabilities are probably the best we've ever tested.
So I've been using the Narwhal in this home for several months, and I can say confidently that it has never gotten stuck, which is really impressive. I can't say that about any other robot. So if you have a home where you've got lots of shoes lying around, if you got stuff on the floor, you got power cords, this is probably the best one to get, in my opinion. It's also very good with anti-tangle. The mapping performance is really good. It's pretty quick, and I actually highly recommend this robot.
So tied for second place, and we have a special visitor with us for this one, is the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra and the Dreame X40 Ultra, really close with 89 points. So they both perform really well, but with the Roborock S8, I will say it's pretty good at doing everything. The one area that it might have been a little bit shaky was its obstacle avoidance, which generally is actually pretty good, but it did bump into the stool more than the other ones. So overall, it's a very good pick, and it's definitely the closest competitor to the Dreame.
The Dreame X40 Ultra is a little bit better than the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra at mopping. Overall, it's a really solid performer that does all the core things really well. These two robots are actually, as we said, probably the closest competitors to each other because they have a very similar design and they came out at around the same time. So it's really good with hair, it has excellent edge pickup and edge mopping, and it's very good with obstacles. And the mopping performance is pretty much equal to all the others except for the Eufy, which of course is way better. So if you're trying to decide between the Dreame or the Roborock, I think it might boil down to just the price that you can get it for at the time when you're shopping.
All right, Eric, who came out on top?
So it is the Roborock Q-Revo Curve. And one of the reasons is it is the newest robot of this entire test. And that means it also has some of the newest technology in it. And even though we didn't mention it that much in the video, it's the only one that can actually go over thresholds. I tested it previously and it went over a threshold of about 3/4 of an inch. So if you have differences in floor heights in your house, this is the one to get. But the new technology means that it is really good performer at all the core functions. It's very good at hardwood pickup. It's very good at mopping, sort of average tied with the other ones, and it's very good at carpet pickup too. It's very good at obstacle avoidance. It basically does everything really well, and it scored just a little bit higher than the others because overall it had a better score in most of the categories. And now let's take a look at the final total scores. Pause the video if you want. And if you're trying to decide which one to get, again, I think it's going to boil down to price. There are links down below, and there's an amazing video right over here. Check it out.